Alright, and we moved it because it was dangerous, and obviously it didn't work. So we're leaving the lights on all over the place.
Now exit the roundabout and then take the next exit.
You've got two birds there sitting next to the transmitter. They'll die. That's why you don't see any birds. So all the birds are gone. There's another bird on there that'll die. Basically cooking them to death in the near field. That one, look at the state of that. I mean, it's bent down a little bit, isn't it? Another one that's going to die. See these birds? So you see a massive depopulation in the bird population. They're in the near field of these transmitters. Now the transmitters on that in the centre there, that's Talenza. You see the Talenza?
Now exit left towards city centre, then take the first exit at the roundabout.
So you've got state of the art. We're in Peterborough, by the way. We're doing a conference down here. There's another couple of birds that'll die. So you've got state of the art. See the birds sitting on the top getting a warm up.
Must have been chilly. 1260 and then keep right.
Must have been chilly this morning. That's the Talenza unit, not the Harvard unit that we just saw before. So you've got the Talenza plate lens weapon system there, on top of these street lights. And as you can see, lights on. So you've got a very sophisticated so-called light control management system.
On to A1260 and then keep right.
So that's supposed to be so sophisticated.
Right and continue to follow A1260 towards Sleaford.
It's supposed to be that sophisticated. It monitors the energy usage and they can't even turn it off. So that just shows you not a control management system, as the local authority will tell you.
Exit to the left and then take the first exit at the roundabout.
Terrible that noise, isn't it? Anyway, I think you've got enough. You're getting the gist. So this is another Talenza weapons program in Peterborough. Tell you what, you talk about driving at night, lethal. I mean, look at these LED lights. No wonder people don't like driving at night. Now you see how bright they are, right, compared to incandescence. You can see the incandescence, you can see the difference. Look, there's an incandescent just way past it. You see these LEDs, absolutely, unbelievably lethal. Well, you see, they want you to get cancer, they want you to get central nervous system cancer, make you sick. Guys, well, this is a private fishing Stanley District Angling Club, yeah? Not a lot of fishermen about, yeah? You can see that. Well, there won't be a lot of fish about, alright? There won't be a lot of fish about, so if anybody wants to contact these guys and let them know, alright? There won't be a lot of fish about here, and I'll show you why, right? Because, unfortunately, this thing's been on for, well, since ever we've been travelling up here, so that's at least a few years since I put this equipment in, right? You see, now these are these modulated optical radiation emitters. Now they're 459 meters around about at that part of the spectrum. What they do, they attract all pollinators. So think about it. The fish live on insects and pollinators. Yeah? So do the birds. Right? So do the birds. So the birds, the fish, insects, and obviously there's not going to be a lot about, because these, and it's not the only one here, these specifically attract insects to them. See how it's changing the camera's focus. That's how powerful this light radiation is coming off these lights. They're attracted, insects are attracted to these LEDs, and then they're killed. All right, it's called ecocide. And your criminal conspiracy councils have committed a crime against you. This is in the Durham area, by the way. These are the same LEDs that were used in the gated area that also kill all the pollinators, small insects, small mammals, birds, because obviously when you take out a small insect, you know, moths, which are protected under international law, killed here, so that's bat feed, so the bats are affected. These are killers. This is all part of a UN Resilient Cities agenda, a mass murder event. Because if you kill all the pollinators, you don't get any food. And criminals in councils have fitted these without any environmental impact analysis. They know they're uninsurable, and this is part of a weapons programme to commit mass murder. Alright? That's what this is for. It's a depopulation agenda, UN Resilient Cities agenda, by idiots, fools, criminals in local councils who are now going to be given billions of pounds to push the Build Back Better narrative. Right? This is what happens when we've got criminals, right, in these positions of power, and these authorities, right, are just total dimwits, fools and clowns. And obviously the fools and the clowns thing a little bit more obvious, but like I said, there is the real effect on businesses. Look, no fishermen, and I'll tell you now, there'll be a dearth because there's no insects about. Thing about it, no moths, nothing about, because these are killing them. These are life-threatening, biologically toxic to all life, retinal cell stress. People don't like them. Local councils have fitted them without any environmental impact analysis. A crime. Let's have a look at this small meter. We've just watched it bouncing 31 volts right next to somebody's seat. Let's just see it. What's that? What was that? There you go. You see it, Bob? Lethal. Absolutely lethal. 15 volts there. 14, 16. See that? You're sitting getting hammered. 12, 4, I mean, just catastrophic through the roof.
Well, what is 5G? Well, at a time when 2024 now, what is 5G? Do we really need to ask? We've got an MP, Andrew Bridgen, writing to the Chief Constable about misconduct in public office to commit attempted murder, assault from actors operating within the British government, and we're now still talking about what 5G is. So anyway, I had a video sent to me yesterday that's being promoted by an organisation who should know better, who should ask what is 5G, instead of promoting a complete and utter falsehood, a deception on the general population. I'm not going to name them, but a lot of people will know who I'm talking about. Absolutely outrageous. An organisation who've never covered 5G, never spoke about the actualities of 5G, then have now given a platform for something that's totally erroneous and not correct. I'm going to try and correct that disinformation today. First and foremost, we need a base. We need a reference point. So this is 1G, 2G, 3G, and 4G masts, which basically 3G, 4G is the main mast there. Now, the rest have fell away. And closest to these masts, so you've got a value on the bottom in meters. So the closer you are to a mast, the increase in depth. And this is 4G. Okay, so the closer you get to your mast, it goes up to about 1,000 meters, and then it drops off to the natural number, right? The general mortality rate in the general population. However, what's not spoken about is the sickness in ill health, because electromagnetic radiation is an immune system suppressor. So if you're going to get the flu, it's going to get worse. If you're going to get pneumonia, it's going to be worse. If whatever you have, Crohn's, Parkinson's, cancers, all gets worse the closer you are to those masts. Okay? It's an immune system suppressor. So this is what baseline. So let's now talk about 5G. So here we have your 4G transmitter, operates inverse square law, and at 1,000 meters, these levels of radiation are infinitesimally small, as you can imagine. operating on inverse square law. So infinitesimally small, but at 30 mile, I can still get a signal from this mast. All right. Now I'll get a little bit more output on my mobile device to do the connection. However, I'll still get a emission to that mast at about 30 mile. Obviously depends on the environment, you know, rain, smog, and all the rest of it. There's a number of environmental factors, but I can basically, so I can get to an infinitesimally small amount of radiation from this mast, and I can still get a signal from my device. Okay. Now, 5G, something completely different. The antenna design, this is the IEE, by the way, the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. So their definition of 5G is beamforming an antenna that can focus a signal at a target. Yeah. Now, the video I watched yesterday is a chap standing down next to one of these masts, 5G masts, and he's measuring the radiation from it. Well, what he's measuring is side lobe leakage and possibly some other antennas on that mast, on that monopole, which are 3G and not 5G, because 5G specifically beams a very compressed directional energy beam at a target. He's definitely not measuring that. You can't measure that. He may be getting some side lobe leakage, but he's not measuring. See, so his understanding of 5G is about zero, which is quite concerning, because the people who promoted it, their understanding of 5G is most certainly not zero, because they've seen me talk about this on several occasions. They're very concerning. So you've got this beamform technology, which here's an image in Liverpool. You've got 3 of these 5G transmitters together. Here's some more of the paraphernalia. This one's beamed at the ground. You'll find several elements, right? You could have 30, 40, 50, 60 elements in there beaming, offset the signal at a target, same as these. All right. Some of this will be telecommunications, and some of it's actually 5G. You'll see how I don't put the two together. So here we have a 5G tower, directional. We've also got them talking to street furniture talking to cars, autonomous vehicles, all interconnected. Here you have 4G, once again, operating inverse square law, and the 5G definition. I'm just trying to reinforce this because it's really important. So anybody trying to measure a 5G signal on the ground here is not measuring it. Do you see where I'm coming from? Right. Here we have these large MIMO 5G transmitters beaming at targets on the ground. Okay. Here we have Nokia's document, which states clearly, right, thousands of customers can be serviced, right, in the sub-gig 800 megahertz spectrum, right, and we had 868 were found in the street furniture, part of the micro 5G network, hundreds of square miles. So you've got hundreds of square miles footprint with just one tower. Okay, and that's the lowest band spectrum. So these are very penetrating in the built-up urban environment. That's what you would require, so your target can't get away from you. And that's what I really want with 5G, because that's what 5G is all about, isn't it? Getting a service to a target. Well, GCHQ warning of extremely dangerous risks of 5G technology. Okay. But we just saw a video yesterday where somebody says it's perfectly all right. I think these GCHQ guys know what I know. This was in 2018 when they took me to court to try and gag us. Failed demonstrably. Chinese face 5G ban over spying fears, backhauling. Yeah, they can spy on you without any shadow of a doubt. They can interrogate all mobile devices, smart meters. They're all interconnected, by the way, so they can spy on you 24/7. Here's some street furniture that was in Newcastle in the West End. Large migrant area. The intelligence agencies or police or whoever it is who've put this equipment up, audio able, by the way, they're not really concerned about your health. They're spying on you, and they haven't taken into consideration the detrimental health effects, the cancers, the Parkinson's, and all the other ailments that the general population will suffer from exposure to these very, very high-powered, dangerous, illegal spying types of technology. Here's a Harvard technology piece of elements, the ones I got removed from Gateshead. Anybody thinks that's a light, you've got mental health problems. That's, I'm just going to say it straight out. If you think that looks like a street light, you've got mental health issues. Here we have the infrastructure where we're causing a beam in air. Now you have to remember, if that beam in air if I get enough stacked photons in air, over about 10, 13 electron volts, sometimes a little bit less than that, depending on environmental factors and spectrum, etc., you can cause ionization in air. Now, we all know that ionizing radiation is dangerous. All know it's dangerous, right? And that roughly comes at about 10 electron volts. ICNIRP's guideline is 61. It's 61 electron volts. So it's nearly 6 times over. If I beam it, if this was ICNIRP compliant, and I beamed it by cause of the focality, the photons, stacking of the photons, I cause ionization at over 10 electron volts. And ICNIRP's guideline for this equipment is 61. So that's 6 times over. Here we have a Telenza unit. It's got an aperture and the plate lens here. It has a focality. What's really concerned about this bit of hardware, it's got a supercapacitor here. It has a relay, a 3,300 watt. It's basically a switch. So I can switch on and off and beam down there, pulse modulated emission, probably a little bit less than the 3,300 watts. But that's quite a large amount of power. This is the equipment I got removed from Gateshead. High gain dielectric lens, got a small teardrop on the end. The intelligence agencies didn't like that. I got trolled quite a bit, as you do when you discover that your local authority have fitted a weapon system on top of you. They didn't like that. Here we have eco-friendly 5G. Well, 5G is about taking energy off the grid and sticking it in air. So you can see, though a lot more transmitters use a lot more energy and create a lot more sickness, ill health and death in their local area, all part of a depopulation agenda. They're starting to find out what 5G really is. Well, you see, here's the densification pattern. So you've got a transmitter that's got over 100-mile footprint, right? Far more powerful, 100-mile footprint, but the one every half a kilometre. Your 4G was every 2 kilometres and your 3G was every 10. Now, I remember when they had 3G, and I didn't have too much trouble getting a mobile signal. I mean, there was some areas now, even with this, you have problem getting a signal. So what is it? What have they actually installed? Have you worked it out yet? Well, if you haven't worked it out yet, let's read this. 5G debuts Winter Olympics as ball repellent, so it shoots rays. Well, it does. It's a directional beam wave, right? It shoots waves at targets, and trying to measure them would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. What I can tell you, at 10 electron volts, it's ionizing radiation in air, not non-ionizing radiation, even though it operates non-ionizing radiation spectrum. It's how a laser cuts stainless steel. That's non-ionizing, cuts straight through stainless steel. That's quite interesting, isn't it? Here we have the technicalities of the Chinese equipment and how the base station amplifiers, right, will run at maximum level for the attack. Okay, so how you do that? All right, you've got typical, you've got 100 watts each transmitter. You've got 64 of them, which then increases that to 68 dBm, which is 6,400 watts. Okay, you then offset, you do an interference pattern, you create a beamforming by phased array, which is 18 dB, and a total EIRP power will be a maximum of 86 dBm, 389,000 watts. A milliwatt, a thousandth of a watt, is 61 electron volts. At 10 electron volts are cause ionization in air. So you can see what 389,000 watts potentially can be. Well, I can tell you what it is. It's a direct energy weapon. We have criminals installing directional weapons on top of you in your streets and across the United Kingdom in large numbers. If I wanted to kill you, right, I need as much as 4.2 watts. 4.2 watts in a beam shot at a person can kill them, okay? And we have, let's go back to it, we have directional weapons installed 389,000 watts. Now, I shouldn't have to be doing this again. The reason I'm doing it is because somebody sent us a video yesterday, right? Willful, well, it's willful ignorance or just silliness, I'm not really sure, but outrageous, saying that 5G masts seem to be safe when you've got a spectrum analyzer and you're metering them at the base. Nothing could be further from the truth. Havana syndrome likely caused by pulse microwave energy. CIA operatives over the years have been attacked with these directional weapon systems. They're so sophisticated, hard to see. Consequently, US assets attacked, possibly by that one side, to test their weapons, because I wouldn't be surprised at all. I mean, it's a bit of a cover, isn't it? You attack your own diplomats. That would be quite handy with your electrical weapons programs. What 5G is? 5G is fifth generation warfare. This is a 360 intelligence, joint intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance document talking about civilian populations being the next target. Anybody that doesn't get that, what I can't understand is that I'm still in 2024 with everything that's happened over forced injections, over 5G deployments during lockdown, and we've still got organisations putting out videos, encouraging people to watch videos that are totally incorrect and deceptive when it comes to what 5G is. Well, everybody, as you'll see in front of you, this is a part of the court case that was held in Newcastle when the government, in their wisdom, well, definitely not in their wisdom, attempted to gag me, right? And what they were attempting to gag me, right, was I was warning the general public. You see, the local council fitted LED streetlights, which were extremely dangerous. They're biologically toxic to all life. They kill. It's an ecocide. Okay, there were bare elements in and around the 450 nanometers frequency, extremely toxic to all life, blind the population, make them sick, give them cancer, etc., etc. This was in 2016, and then in 2018, eventually the council and the government who were running this illegal deployment on top of the general population, they were funding the local authorities. Local authorities are being funded to kill you, all right? And because I was basically stating that as much and telling the people that were baby killers, etc., they got themselves upset and ended up having to take me to court to try and gag me. They said I was a conspiracy theorist and that they had to gag me because unfortunately people believed it. Because people's babies were dying. Children were having nosebleeds, people were dying, people were getting brain cancers and dying, children were getting heart cancers and dying, but guess what? People believed me. Anyway, they called me a conspiracy theorist. Now, anybody who would know anything about what a conspiracy is or a theory, the only person that would try and use conspiracy theorist in a derogatory manner is an idiot, right? Somebody who is intellectually challenged. Because it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, what does it mean? Well, if you knew what the meaning of it is, it's not a derogatory term at all. And only an idiot would even mention that. And then obviously the idiots at the council did. The government do it quite often, call you conspiracy theorist. In fact, there's a guy there who has refused the COVID-19 vaccine in hospital, and they've actually, some idiot, some intellectually challenged individuals put it on his medical records. And this shows the type of idiocy, and this is the reason why this is a spiritual war that we are engaged in, and we're fighting against demonic forces, right? Right the way through the educational system, right? You see, the whole point of, knowledge. Knowledge is an understanding, right? It's empirical perception, okay? And it's where you can observe and use scientific method to, to understand or to have a theory. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people have a reliance on the academic world, and that's the reason why we're here today. You see, you've had a lot of academics who've come out, and a lot of the academic body, the main body of academia, right, is basically telling you 5G is safe and effective, the vaccine's safe and effective, until the body count gets to the point where they just can't cover up they just can't cover up the bodies. There's so many. Well, unfortunately, because they've controlled the mainstream media, we've now got a body count that's actually catastrophic. We've got LED lights, we've got 5G networks, we've got governments, we've got local authorities allowing falsified documents, criminals in public office. And the reason why they're doing that is because they are idiots. They are idiots who are in positions of power and only got there because of the corruption that's went on in the public sector for a long time. So you've got people who are in positions of authority, in these authorities, who are basically idiots. And anybody who, they've been to a university, they've got a degree, they might have a PhD. I know a girl who tried to do a thesis PhD on estrogen. This was early on in the 80s, when they just started to take total control of the academic world, the complete sort of lockdown, where she was going to do a thesis on estrogen, women's pill, pollution in the environment. And that was totally stymied by the university. And this is what happens. You'll get intellectuals, people who have got some sort of academic qualification. And for some inexplicable reason, people believe that they have some sort of, some sort of control over the knowledge base. Well, that's not the case. I mean, I can read 10 published peer-reviewed papers. I can soon work out, due to that, that scientific method and how they've actually garnered the information, whether it's false or not, because I've got that ability. Yeah. Some people, unfortunately, just believe anything, any old shit that they're told. Unfortunately, that's, once again, idiocy. There's always a varying view in science. Always has been, right? And it's all about being able to pick how that work was actually carried out. I always go for, emeritus professors, because obviously they're outside of the control, or outside of most of the control. That's why you get a lot of retired scientists now, climatologists in particular, saying that the whole climate thing's a hoax. But when they were in tenure, when they were in a university, then they couldn't say that and get the sack. You get the sack if you speak out, you see. And this is how they control the narrative. So you see, when anybody says to me about academic qualifications, they mean absolute. In fact, not only do they mean less than zero, what they mean is the person that's asked the question is an idiot. The same as the idiot that wants to put on somebody's medical records that they're conspiracy theorist, right? They are seriously intellectually challenged, and it's more serious than that because there's a spiritual aspect to it. You see, they're being dragged into this devilish, this satanic controlled mechanism, right, that stops people from actually getting the knowledge. As we know, and with lack of knowledge, unfortunately, you'll die. You see, early on, I told everybody that 5G was a weapon system. I still hear people tell people that's got something to do with telecommunications, when in fact, point of fact, it's a weapon system. It's only masquerading as a telecommunications system. The whole electromagnetic radiation spectrum, the terraforming of the earth with it, is all part of your destruction to kill all biological life on this planet. But you see, unfortunately, people can't accept that someone like me can have the knowledge. Now, in this particular court case, in Newcastle Crown Court, when the government attempted and failed in trying to gag me, right, they had experts there that really just didn't know what they were talking about. They made statements. Their statements were false. To commit genocide, because the equipment that they'd installed was a killer. Okay? What the recorder said, well, you can read it for yourself. I don't need to, because obviously I'm talking over it, but you can read this for yourself. Right? And what he said was, this is a free country. Well, we now find out that it's not a free country, right? Well, basically it's a totalitarian, tyrannical state apparatus. However, we have people, right, who unfortunately go along with it. You see, like, academics who believe that conspiracy theorists, something, actually, this is just absolutely idiotic. And we've got a lot of idiots out there who, for some inexplicable reason, believe that if you haven't got a bit of paper, if you haven't went to Oxford or Cambridge and you haven't got a doctorate or a postdoc or something, if you haven't got something on a piece of paper, right, that they'll be happy with, they'll accept an indoctrination. If you haven't been indoctrinated into that satanic cult narrative, then you don't know what you're talking about. They have a percentage. This is the type of idiots we have. This is the type of idiots we have, right? And obviously the only way that you can get around that is by testing it out in a court. See, it's pretty obvious. You see, courts work on facts. Courts work on facts. In facts, basically, knowledge is all about facts, right? It's all about, empirical evidence, a scientific method, and facts. So when it comes out in a court, right, what happens, you see, people should take note. And unfortunately, you see, they can't help themselves because they're idiots, because they're intellectually challenged, because they're controlled in a satanic cult, indoctrinated, still can't get it. But here's the rub. If you don't break out of that satanic cult narrative, unfortunately, it's off to the hot box. You're going to hell. You see, the opportunity for people, I've been telling for quite a number of years, you do as you're told, it'll kill you. You do as you're told in the satanic realm, they're planning your extermination. So, I know a lot of people know that to be true, but I know there's also an awful lot of other genuine people who unfortunately still don't get it, still got their feet in that satanic realm, right? Still require, right, that academic narrative, which is totally false, by the way. It's totally false and has been falsified for hundreds and hundreds of years to stop people getting to the prize, yeah, which is the ascension. Because once we break out of that, that's when we're going to really start to make some progress. And we're not making progress now because there's far too many people, right, who are they've still got their feet in that satanic realm.